November, for the month of November. In fact, it's the month of celebration in India. We have a lot of Indian people, so I want to say Happy Diwali for everyone. And also, it's really very special session today because I have two of my favorite friends and let's say fellows in this. I have Giovanna and Giuseppe. I will ask first Giovanna to introduce herself. Welcome, Giovanna. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. For our Indian friend, Diwali ki shab kamnae. Happy Diwali. I'm Giovanna. I'm a community builder and a soft skill trainer, and I'm changing my career to data science. And I have part of this amazing community, and I had the opportunity to meet Giuseppe and Ghaith. And thank you for this great opportunity to be here today talking with you.
Thank you, Giovanna. In fact, I am very happy to have you in this event. And I told you yesterday, and I'm telling everybody today, I'm telling everybody today, because really it was a great impact since we announced that Giovanna will be in this session. I get great impact on great feedback on the social media. And we have today Mr. Giuseppe. Giuseppe, you are, let's say, you are hosting us. You are not a guest anymore. So please introduce yourself and say hello.
Not today. Today I'm not hosting you. Today I'm more a listener. I want to learn from Giovanna. But anyhow, I'm Giuseppe Buonacorso. I've been working with data science since a very long time, and I collaborated with Ghaith in many podcasts, many events. So in this case, this event will be focused around some topics which are extremely interesting. Giovanna will cover topics related to social marketing. I will try to cover some subtopics very in the corner. So just in case, okay, some topics related to AI applied to social marketing. And of course, happy Diwali to all our Indian friends who is joining the meeting. So thank you very much, Ghaith, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Giuseppe. In fact, even the session today, even the topic, it's really interesting. When we are talking about artificial society, because we are really lucky. This generation is really lucky because we are able to see how the societies are created, developed, and then reach to specific in a small period of time. For example, because right now of this social media, in 20 years we were able to see how, let's say, Facebook is created, how then the groups started, the chat groups started, and then the promotion become a huge promotion market on the social media. All of this, it's really the same copy or cloning of what's happened in the human societies. But in a short time, we don't need thousands of years to understand how society is created. Here we have a human directed or oriented development for societies. Now, we have a lot, according to that, we have a lot of data and a lot of information is shared on the social media. Plus we have the power of AI next to it. So we will try to understand how we are going to get the benefit of this data and use it in a correct way, and then find where we are going with this artificial society. This is something it's created, and we see how it's created, and then we see how it's raised and where it will go. So this is the main topic that we are going to focus today. And according to that, I will start with one question to Giovanna, to just landing the let's say the topic. What is the impact of the social media on today's business?
Okay, talk about business without including social media is impossible, because thanks to social media, we can build our brand. We have many options to communicate with our audience, and we can grow our business or initiatives. So the impact is huge. Something that I would like to add is that the version of the social media before COVID is completely different from the version that we have living now. Because before COVID, it was social media was just a way of brands to create a lot of ads and bombarded us with all these ads to sell more. Now, social media is like everyone has moved online, and we need to feel that we are connected, that we are part of our community, and brands now have changed the way that they communicate with audience. All of us that need to communicate with that audience have changed. We need to change our strategy now, and we need to make them feel that we care about them. We are not just trying to sell something, but we are trying to tell them with our messages, with our posts, with everything that we produce, that we create. We are trying to say, we are by your side. So social media now is like a place where people can be connected, and in order to be effective in our communication, we need to approach our audience thinking on that. And because now we are all living in an artificial society.
So since we are all living in an artificial society, that means we have a parallel life, kind of parallel life, that we have our own life, which is right now it's restricted according to COVID pandemic. We are stay home for a long time, and we have the life in the social media. Now, for sure, there is a kind of impact. There is a relationship created. Now, are we able to define this relationship, or to define what is the best that this relationship will give us on the real life? At the end, okay, we are dealing with, for example, on LinkedIn or in Facebook or anywhere, we are dealing with real people somehow, not always, okay? But at the end, how this will affect our real life, and what we have to do to make this affection or this infection, it's positive infection, not only negative effects. So can you tell us more about this artificial society, how it's reflect to the, let's say, normal society?
We are moved our life to the virtual, in a virtual society. So we are trying to get what we usually get with our friends, going to have a coffee or to have dinner together with our friends. Now we cannot do that. We are doing everything online. And what is happening is that we are spending more time on social media. But we are not just looking to buy something. We are looking for new content. We are looking to be entertained. We need to be inspired, because if we are at home, if we are in lockdown, we don't have anything. We don't have our family close, maybe, or maybe we don't have I cannot have access to the things that I used to have before. So I'm trying to reach all the things online. So the way to relate our real life with the virtual life is just trying to do the same things that we used to do in our real life. And brands and we as users of the social media will want to communicate with our audience, because this is not for brands, not only for brands. It's also for people who wants to share, for example, knowledge, as all our contributors of the community, of the data community. For example, it's a way to, okay, I know that we are at home. I know that we don't have access to other things. So I love how a lot of the contributors are trying to fix, for example, office hours, mentoring sessions like this. For example, Ghaith and other groups are organizing these amazing events that allow people to reach experts, like, for example, Giuseppe in artificial intelligence, and in other events, different kind of experts. So I think if we want to connect really with our audience and make them feel that are part of a community, we can do a lot of things. So we just need to be creative and create quality content. And that's why people is trying to get everyday quality content, different content. And I think, for example, I am studying data science, and now I can get a lot of information on LinkedIn because I use more LinkedIn, and I get there what maybe I cannot find in other places, because I feel that I'm growing together with all the people that are part of this community, and I feel part of a community. And I think this is the connection between the real life and the virtual life, the connection that we are feeling thanks to these contributors, these people that is sharing knowledge, sharing their life and their time. So,
thank you. In fact, I have another question for you, but I have some concern also. When we are talking about this kind of let's say, information or kind of sharing, I think it's you agree with me that also we have a lot of false information, something it's not real shared there. I'm not going to speak about this now. Later we will discuss about this, but I will back to your point. Okay, the marketing before COVID, we are going to sell something. Right now we have full marketing strategy happening there. So what is the most effective marketing strategies? What is the most effective channels or social media that you are able to use according to your experience on that?
okay, I think that we all agree that Facebook is on the top of the ranking. There are no discussions about that. And then we have Instagram in the second place. And then for the next position, it depends on the location. We can find LinkedIn, we can find Twitter, TikTok, and sometimes people mentioned WhatsApp, Telegram as a part of social media. And I think it depends on the demographic. It depends on our target, because that is the most important thing, that we need to have clear what is our target. And to build a solid strategy, I think there are two elements that are very important. The first one is our goals. What do we want to achieve in our project, initiative, or business? And the other thing, the important thing is the needs of our audience. I think these two elements are very important to build a solid strategy, because we need to think not only in what I want to achieve, because in that way, it is obvious that I'm using my audience to get money. If we connect this with the needs of our audience, it's different, because now I'm considered by their needs, and I'm thinking about I care about them. So I think this is the connection. But another important thing, as I said, is to have clear the target, because sometimes we have planned our strategy, and we have the budget, and we have everything. At the end, the results are not okay, because we don't have the real idea of who is our audience. I think it's the most important part with these all other elements. And another thing is that we can look on Google, for example, some social media demographics. If you go to Google and you write social media demographics, you are going to get very interesting information about what are the ages, the gender, and the people who is, for example, on Facebook, and people that you can find on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and LinkedIn. You are going to see that it's different every platform has these different targets. So it's not necessary to be in all of these platforms. You have to focus on the social media where your target is present. This is part of the strategy, and you need to know where is your audience.
Okay, now your answer give me a feeling, and in fact it's nice feeling, but also it will for this the feeling that I'm in social media just like an old city. Sometime we have a market that where everybody is knowing each other, and when you are going to buy something, you know where to go immediately, and even there is a personal relationship between you and between the, the buyer, let's say. But this is also, I can move it right now to Giuseppe to ask him. We make it more human. Giovanna make the social media more human, that everything is almost personal relationship is built there. But we know that there is a lot of AI effect there. So what is the AI effect, or what is the AI importance for the marketing strategy?
Well, thank you, Ghaith. Well, indeed, the usage of AI is aimed to create a more human social marketing. It can be strange initially, but the reality is that if we think about a social strategy, which is just based on a very, let's say, rule-based approach where you show some content or you manage some content according to just very simple rules. This is very far from the way we behave. So AI has been introduced as a tool to customize and to tailor social marketing to address the needs of the final users. And the final users are meant to be not one group nor two groups, but a very large number of groups. I want to emphasize this concept because one of the most important concepts in social marketing is the idea that when you have an audience, or in general a set of customers, a set of followers, doesn't matter, you have to consider the so-called personas. Persona is a term coming from the original meaning of this term is mask. So even if we use the persona also to indicate in some languages person, the person, but a persona is also a way to summarize some characteristics, features of a group of people, and to use these features to define specific strategies. So if we consider social marketing, our target is not a person. Of course, it's too difficult, but is a persona in general. A persona is like the beginning of a clustering procedure. I always say, when I talk about clustering, I always say one thing. Don't consider clustering as a way to segment only. Because when you find a cluster is made up of elements who are similar to each other, but they are also different. But thanks to the similarity, thanks to the fact that they belong to the same cluster, they are allowed to share the dissimilarities, in other words. So they are similar enough to share experiences. And this is one thing that is done in a lot of procedures. So we start by looking at the audience, segmenting the audience, understanding how these groups are characterized, and then we try to propagate the differences so that what I haven't experienced but it has been experienced by people very similar to me can be proposed to me. This approach is becoming more and more diffused, together with clearly another approach. And this approach is based on the real-time experience of the users. Of course, what I'm saying, I have to be clear, must be done under the consent rules. So I have to give my consent. But if I give my consent, whatever I do can be used to make real-time analysis of my activities and to customize the responses. Customizing the advertising, for example, customizing the messages adjusting the messages as a double benefit. On one side, the benefit is, and I will talk maybe later about these techniques. It's probably not the right moment in this answer, but customizing the answers is a way, or the content in general, is a way to limit the audience and to target the audience, but in a way that what you are obtaining is exactly what you are expecting in some way. So we are not forcing the user to see something that is completely outside of her scope, but to see something that is inside the scope. It can be of interest or not, but is already inside her scope. Later on, if I hope to have the possibilities to show some or to discuss, not to show, some examples of AI applied. But to answer, to summarize my answer to your question, Ghaith, well, it's absolutely true, and at the same time, I would say false, that we are using AI to as contraposition to the human face. We are using AI to make social marketing more and more human. So to make social marketing more and more closer and closer to human beings, to the needs of human beings, and to the understanding the fact that we are different. So we are not the same. If you watch TV, you watch a TV advertising, it's the same for the whole population. And the choice of an advertising is only based on the price of the advertising. But if I'm not interested to buy a car and I see an advertising of a car, that advertising is completely wasted money for me. If instead I can see an advertising for something I'm interested in, at least that I showed some interest in, of course, I'm increasing the likelihood of investing money for something that is definitely more likely to become a reality.
Okay, who want to answer the next question? I have a question for Giuseppe and a question for Giovanna. I'll start with Giovanna. Okay, I'll make it easier. Giovanna, when you mentioned Google, to Google just social media demographics, I remember something. There is something was called Google Plus, if you remember, and this one is not succeeded and it's not stopped anymore. But for example, instead of that, we have Instagram as a successful example of the social media. Can we find why this has happened?
Yeah.
Can you give us some indicators or prediction why this kind of things might happen?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question, guys. It's because we need to feel that we have a real life, but we don't have nowadays a real life, unfortunately. So, for example, Instagram, the revolution of Instagram are the stories, because people can share what they are doing. They can share, for example, an author can share the behind the scenes of if they are preparing a project or they are preparing something, they can show this to the audience. People needs to share what they are doing with other people, and stories are the best way of doing that. That's why LinkedIn has added a lot of features that you can find in other platforms, because LinkedIn, what has done is to say, okay, I don't want my users to go to other platforms to use these features because I'm losing them. So they, LinkedIn, what I have done is to put all these features in order to make us to be always there. Another thing that has done LinkedIn are the reactions and the possibility of react on the messages, that I think is amazing. Because I remember first when someone sent a message, and you have to say, okay, 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 and it was a group, everyone has to say, okay, 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 now you can just react to a message, and it's more fun, I think. And fun is another ingredient of the all this success of Instagram, because you can have a lot of gifts, you can put a lot of emoticons, emojis on your stories or on your posts, and I think this is another interesting thing. But something that I would like to say on this part is that when we do a strategy to use social media, we have to be coherent, because sometimes we use many platforms, social media platforms, and we tend to do two things. The first one is to copy the same content that we have produced or create for one platform, and we copy this in all the rest of the platforms. This is, you can do it. It's not forbidden to do that. But I think your audience wants to know more about you, more different content. So another thing that some people do is, maybe I used to do too, is to put different kind of content in different platforms, and they weren't connected among them. So when your audience goes to Facebook, see one thing, and then when goes to Twitter, it's another thing. And this is like, okay, what is happening here? What are you talking about? You're talking about A, or you're talking about B? Or maybe in another platform, you're talking about C. So there is not a flow of ideas in the use of the social media. I think to be effective, you need to use in a proper way all the features of the social media that you have. For example, Facebook is very famous for the communities, to grow communities in Facebook. So maybe you can feed your communities with content that allow you to know more about your community. Because something that has said Giuseppe that is very important about this persona is that you have a profile of your audience, the ideal profile of your audience. And maybe not just one, maybe 2 or 3 or 4. And if you have this community allows you to test your strategy and to feel if you engage with your audience. Another thing is, for example, you have LinkedIn, and here I want to use as example the profile of Giuseppe. For example, he writes a post, but it's not enough, this post. So he has just launched his blog, so his video blog on YouTube, because in this blog he can explain more about the ideas that he published on LinkedIn. And I take advantage of this moment to tell all of you that on YouTube you can find the link of the new channel of Giuseppe that is very interesting. I'm a follower. Congratulations, Giuseppe, because I'm learning a lot. So because you can see how the ideas flow between the posts on LinkedIn, and then you go to YouTube and you understand something that maybe with more details, and this is awesome. Another thing that Giuseppe does is, for example, when he has a session and there are a lot of questions and there is no time to answer all the questions, he uses the LinkedIn post or the blog to answer to these questions. So if I go to these 2 platforms, social media platform, looking for Giuseppe and to learn more about his content, I can see that there is a flow in the content. And this is the kind of thing that we can take advantage of the platform. Using every platform using the features that we can improve our connection with our audience. So I think that's why, for example, Instagram is so important, because I don't want just to read a post. I want to see the person that is behind the content. I want to know more about this person. So that's why if you share a picture on Instagram, or if you share a video, a story, people feel that it's nearer to you. So I think this is the effect of Instagram.
Okay, thank you, Giovanna. Giuseppe, here I just will use one example, let's say anonymous example, not for person, just to ask you about something else. For example, in Facebook, we can find some posts that full of wisdom, for example, but if you know the person himself, maybe he's not that much wise person. I'm not about this, why I'm asking this, it's about that quality of data. When we want to make this persona and we want to make this kind of clustering and forward or recommend our promotion or our posts to the suitable audience, how we will be sure about the data quality, that the data collected is the correct data needed really for this? How this has happened on the social, when we are using the information of the social media? Because as a human, me as a human, I'm unable to differentiate. So how AI will help us for that?
Yes, Ghaith, you are unable simply because you cannot compare so many data elements at the same time. So it's quite normal that we filter our ability to manage this amount of data is very limited. Nowadays, we use AI to analyze large amount of data, and initially this amount of data was limited to just some elements of the profile. So some, let's say, identification keywords. Nowadays, we can analyze in real time, almost real time, let's say, the content that you published. At this point, it's much easier for us to understand according to the content and according to the reactions. This is another interesting thing. Before, Giovanna talked about reactions. Reactions nowadays can be meant as immediate reactions, which are like some sort of reinforcement of the content, you know, thumbs up, thumbs down. But reaction is also comment. So you have a lot of elements where you can understand, for example, the sentiment. The sentiment it was initially a binary content, or at least with three states: neutral, positive, or negative. But in reality, we can understand a lot of other things. We can understand the quality of the content, the kind of content, the kind of audience that the content is trying to target. By looking at, for example, the complexity, the kinds of words used, or other elements. So it's much easier nowadays than a few years ago, thanks to the computational power. And what we do is exactly what you can do as a human being by looking at a profile and studying the profile, going throughout all the posts, for example, and trying to understand if the post, for example, is original, if the post is just a sharing of something external, if the content is something created on from scratch, and so forth. This will allow to define the main elements of the profile that will be used in later stages for also proposing the profile to users. Because another problem is the amount of users that nowadays are on the social networks. And the main problem is the so-called timeline. You have the timeline. The timeline is, if you consider the number of followers or the number of connections, okay, is so huge that if you should put everything in a timeline, it's impossible to follow anybody. It's almost impossible. It's like a lottery. So how the timeline is structured? It's structured according to some principles based on what you expect to find on the timeline. This is a very complex discussion. The topic is very advanced in terms of AI, but the goal is to understand how you react to the timeline. So if I open my LinkedIn account before I go to my profile, I never go to my profile, to be honest. I always go to the timeline. So I open the application, I see the timeline, and I see a selection of posts. And this selection is based on my content and on the content that I liked or I interact with in the previous days. Because when I interact, I show some interest for that specific content. So it means that I want to see more of that kind of content. So this is also a suggestion for, in general, for users. I mean, in general, we want to increase our audience. This is not my topic. I don't want to talk on behalf of Giovanna, of course. But from an AI viewpoint, the suggestion is to try to engage with people, because engaging with people means to enlarge the possibility that more and more people will see your post, because it means that you are, it's like, imagine a situation that you are in an office talking with one person during lunchtime. Instead of talking to one person, you have a crowd around you. So, and this crowd increases. So you become the center of this crowd. And what you say is listened by many, many people around you. This is the goal that we want to achieve. We don't want to talk with just one person. And if another person arrives, we say, okay, bye-bye, or okay, thank you, and we let the other person away. We want the people to close to us. And this is achieved by increasing or letting the AI algorithm understand that we want to have engagement. And the only way to let them know is to interact, because thanks to the interaction, we increase the possibility to tell the algorithm, I use a very simple language in this case, but it's a very effective one, to tell the algorithm my content has been understood by these people, and these people are interested in my content. So it's not a matter of what I published. I can publish a very complex mathematical formula, or I can publish a photo. It doesn't matter. But these people are reacting. On the other side, there is an overreaction that can be a problem. I mean, overreaction, or the reaction that is not natural, just for example, a lot of likes without any kind of comment, or very simplistic comments, can be a negative factor, because in that case, it can mean that the reaction is automatic. So it's like when you have a classic VIP, or a classic, I mean, a person that you follow with just you like everything without considering the content. If you have a lot of likes, but without a content behind, in this case, the interest is considered lower. So I don't want to steal the scene to Giovanna for the suggestions about how to work on social networks, but indeed the AI algorithms tend to understand the behavior according to these principles, approximately, of course.
Okay, I have one question for both of you, and I think it will be conclusion for the session, and then I will be open for the questions. The question, let's start with Giovanna, and then I will move to Giuseppe. Giovanna, how to build a digital relationship with the audience, the targeted audience. And Giuseppe, the question will be the next part, how AI will help. I'm asking for a kind of scenario. So if Giovanna give us a scenario, and then Giuseppe is able to use the AI for this in general tips, let's say.
This is my favorite part, because here we have to think about the human relationships. So how do you connect with other person? You have to think the same, but now it's a little complicated, because you cannot have this person face to face and maybe you cannot see the reaction, the real reaction of this person, because you cannot see this person. You just can read a comment, or maybe you just receive a reaction, as Giuseppe said. So here the soft skills of, I think the most important are the communication skills, in the way how we deliver our message. And this is the center of all the things that we have been talking about until now. Because if you don't consider the needs of your audience, if you don't know the profile of your audience, or you don't have designed a personas or persona of your audience, you don't know, or you don't have idea of how communicate with your audience. This is like when you organize a birthday party, okay? Before COVID was like, okay, maybe you could invite your friends, your close friends, and your family at home to celebrate. Now we cannot. We use Zoom, Meet, and other platforms to join our beloved friends and family. So what is the message here? That when you invite someone to a party, it's not like you invite everyone to the party, right? You select the people that you want in your party. It's like when you do a Zoom. If you want, for example, today we have our amazing audience here. They register in our event, and they are here because they are interested in this event. And when I do a party, it's like, okay, I want just my close friends and family in this party. So I'm not going to publish this Zoom link on the internet, and then I have a lot of people that I don't know inside of a Zoom call. And this is like, okay, what are you doing here? I didn't invite you. I didn't know you. Why are you here? So it's the same effect that when you just want to have a lot of followers, because the concept of to have a lot of followers is like success, that this is not anymore the concept, because we have seeing how Instagram, for example, has erased these things that before you had 2,000 of likes, 3,000 of likes. Now you just see one people and others like this post. So because the concept is not anymore quantity, but is quality of the followers. Okay. For example, if I want to increase the numbers of followers in the YouTube channel of Giuseppe, maybe I can go to all people I know. I said, okay, just put subscribe. And maybe tomorrow, maybe he has, I don't know, 200 of followers, I don't know, 3,000 of followers, but maybe just 100 are interested in artificial intelligence. And this is not okay for his channel, because he wants people who wants to hear, to listen about artificial intelligence and other topics that he covers. So this is the same thing. When we want to communicate, we need to understand who is in front of us. In this case, on social media, are part of our communities. Another thing as a soft skill is empathy, because nowadays our audience is vulnerable because of COVID. We have a lot of fears, we have concerns, we need to go through social media and try to find some inspiring content that made me feel better, or maybe some entertainment content that I can see, okay, for 5 minutes or maybe 20 minutes, I can forget about the situation. So empathy is very important, and understanding, because I can produce a lot of content that is important for me. And maybe this content, I like this kind of content, but I cannot produce content thinking about me. I have to produce content thinking about the other person. And here is important an active listening. An active listening nowadays means that you have to be present where your audience is present. For example, go to the communities where you can find people that are part of their persona's profile, to read what they are talking about, because there is the source of information that can help you to guide your strategy to arrive to these people. Because when you prepare a message for your audience, you have to think that your audience, as all of us, we at the beginning can say, okay, this brand of this person can sell something. This is the first impact, okay? So you have to prepare your audience minds to be open to your message. And this is the most difficult part of communication, because all of us, we have a filter. Everything that comes to us is filtered by all our experience, our background, our thoughts, and so on. So we need to open this and try to be more effective with our communication. That's why it's important to know who is our target, because we can talk we can like a tune with the mind of our audience. And I think this is difficult, but it's not impossible. And how can we get this? We can get by testing. Another important thing to test if my message is, our content is really useful for our audience, is, for example, try to deliver the message for our audience in different times during the day. Because sometimes we deliver our message, for example, very early, because it's the time that it's the moment that I have time to publish my post. But maybe at that hour, my audience is not present on social media. So we can test to put in different schedules and to see when what is the time of the day that people react more. And then we can test again in the same hour with different content, but maybe it's because the content was good the day before, and maybe the content of today is not so good. We have to test. There is not a formula for that. But I think the most important of all of this is to be authentic. Because if you just deliver a message saying what people want to hear, that this is something that sometimes people do in marketing, at the end, the results are not going to be effective, because people is going to think that you are manipulating them. So you need to be authentic. You don't need to manipulate, because if your product, your initiative, or you as a professional, if everything is true, you don't need to manipulate. You just need to show what you are able to do and to give. And I think it's important to adopt an authentic and helpful approach to support your audience nowadays that we are suffering this pandemic.
Giuseppe, how we are able to tune using AI, this tuning that mentioned by Giovanna. Some ideas. I'm not going to tell you go in details for sure.
No, Giovanna said, she talked about so many different things that is, of course, very difficult to analyze in details in a short time. But she said something very interesting. The first thing is that we need to understand that whatever is made public is that we are showing something to the public. So our goal is to maximize the number of people that can see what we are showing. It's not a limited audience. If I want a limited audience, AI becomes useless. I just invite my limited audience. If I want a random selected audience, in that case, I mean, I want to limit my audience to some people with specific interest, but I don't know who they are. So in this case, AI becomes extremely helpful. As I said before, the usage of profiles, or the way understanding the way people interact is becoming more and more important, because this can automatically select those people who are the most suitable for a specific situation, for in a specific context. One example is the recommendation, for example, and this is a purely AI example. Recommendations are the most or the simplest way to do social marketing, let's say, or marketing in a either classical or advanced way. What the idea is that if you buy X and X is associated with Y, I can also propose Y. Or the same is for a post. If you like this post and the other post, another post from another user is very similar, I can propose also the post from another user. This is a very simple idea, very effective, but it became more and more complex over time. Initially, it was just based on some simple associations. So the associations that I said before, if we are in the same group, and I liked something, you liked other things, so we can share the differences. This approach is very naive, but at the same time, in some cases, also effective. But in reality, as the complexity of human being goes beyond the simplicity of these models, now we have recommendation engines which are based on the kind of interaction that happen, the kind of content, the way the user, for example, the author of the content interacts with the users. So there are many different factors that can create a set of potential candidates for a recommendation. So recommending is nowadays is becoming more and more important, also because think about the number of users, think about the number of channels. Giovanna promoted my very small channel. I mean, I started a channel that is really like a channel for myself only. But there are so many resources. So if I just pick randomly, I pick every time wrong. If I try to direct my choice, I need some guidance. So there are two possibilities. One is to be completely random. The other one is to be guided. But I don't want to be fully guided. I want to explore also. That's why recommendations are exactly this. Recommendations are based on the idea to have a factor that can be tuned to increase the amount of discovery, so including a sort of discovery. And this parameter is tuned throughout your interaction according to your behavior. Because if you like discovering, this parameter is kept very high. If you don't like discovering, there are people who are really monothematic. They don't want any kind of channel. When I say channel or source, okay, it's exactly the same. I'm not referring to any specific social media. I'm just referring to a general one. So there are people who like to for example, to read always the same kind of post, or they like to watch always the same kind of movie. They never watch something different. So it doesn't make any sense to try to advertise or to promote. In particular for advertising, for example, this is a problem because consider that advertising is paid. So if I am an advertiser, I don't want my ads to be shown to people who are not to interact with them. So I want to have your algorithms, to be able to select the right users, and to select the right users in two ways. One is to select the users who are already familiar, the so-called promoters. So those users are like my rock solid base. I have my rock solid base, you have your rock solid base. Everyone has this base of users who always interact with us. But this is really, I don't want to be misunderstood, but this can be something totally useless. I mean, it's like when I give for granted the love of my loved ones. They are some people who are for sure always following me, but I want to conquer new territories. I want to find new people. So that's why it's necessary to use strategies to expand the boundaries, but of course not to go in directions where I'm sure that I will never find good followers, and I spend my money for nothing. So the main concept is in recommendation is to have these tunable parameters that can be customized now user per user. In the past, these algorithms were based on clusterings, now are based on the computation of real-time recommendations, which are not purely real-time, but based on very large computations where the interactions are taken into account, and there is a sort of dynamic, let's say, formula for each single user that is improved after each interaction. This way, the content is always promoted in the optimal way, and the optimal is never always predefined, can change over time, in other words. Another thing is to segment people continuously. When I said before personas, Giovanna said the right thing. We have not only a single persona. I'm not a single persona. I remember, persona means mask. I can wear different masks. Now I'm very formal. When I hang out, I can be very informal. When I go to work, I can be more formal. So my life, our lives are very different in different moments. So we have different personas. And so it's also important to make different segmentations or dynamic segmentations. A dynamic segmentation is a segmentation where I see the user as a moving component. So if the user is in a cluster, cluster or segment are synonyms. So let's use the term segment, which is more marketing oriented in this case. There are users who are close to the boundaries. These users are very interesting because when a user is close to the boundary, it means that it's close to another or other clusters, other segments. It's interesting to see if it makes sense to push these users to the other segments or to invite the users to explore. In some cases, if the user, for example, is a promoter close to the boundary of neutral or users who are leaving the platform, I have to do everything to keep the user in. If I'm just segmenting according to interest, for example, a user, Giovanna said that she's starting, she's not starting, she already started, but she's exploring the world of data science. So I know that she's interested in data science. She's starting exploring data science. So I want to push her more and more in this direction. And to push her more and more, I cannot, first, I cannot be extremely pushy. This is something counterintuitive, because if I become too pushy, she can be scared. She can say, oh my God, this is something too much for me, or it's something beyond my expectation in this moment. so I have to tune the way I promote the content. But on the other side, I want to involve her more and more. So I want to show more and more content. So I want to move this element to another cluster to say, just try to explore, and then you can go back. These operations are done through techniques which are based on an analysis of also the causality of the analyzing how some causes can help a user move from a segment to another when it happens, or just shifting from a segment to the neighbor, but not completely. I can obtain a result. In particular, when I save users, this is very helpful when the users are leaving a platform, for example. But it can be extremely helpful when I want to promote new content to new users. So there are absolutely so many topics in AI. Clearly, the time is short. I don't want, I cannot talk about everything, but I'm keen to answer questions about this. Thank you, Ghaith.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Thank you, Giovanna. In fact, before moving to the question, there is some names I'm finding on the audience. And in fact, I have to welcome them. Tom is here, I think. Susan, Tina Mary, Ammar for sure, Alok, Timothy. This is what I'm able to see right now, and forgive me for that. I'm not able to see everything. For the question, we are taking the question on Zoom only, not on the YouTube. So sorry for the YouTube, who's watching us on YouTube. We are unable to get the comments. I will ask the person to unmute himself and ask his question directly. So I will start with Ammar because the first question coming from Ammar. Ammar, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so hello everyone. Thank you, Giovanna, Giuseppe, Ghaith, for this amazing event. It's been a pleasure for me. So my question, I've sent it in the chat now, and it's actually to Giuseppe. And since he's active on LinkedIn, I'm sure of that. I think that he noticed, as we all did as active people on LinkedIn, that there are like different types of AI enthusiasts and people who are interested in AI on LinkedIn. Like you have this influencer and motivator who like keeps you motivated and encourage you to do like stuff and to work on yourself and to do courses and to do projects and stuff like that. There's like the technical guy who always shares like notebooks, new achievements, stuff like that. And there are like the meme provider, like that person who always like post memes and stuff. So Giuseppe, yourself, which one do you prefer to follow? And do you think that following some other like types or like some of those is toxic? Like for me, I do use LinkedIn for my as a part of my advancement process. So do you think this might like slow the process? Like this might affect the process negatively if you like follow the wrong people?
Thank you for the question. I can start from the last one. Well, in general, if you are critic enough, you're able to distinguish between good and bad content, and nothing is really toxic. Of course, it's like a natural selection. You can start following people and then you unfollow them simply because you don't like the content or you don't understand. This can also be a problem for people who want followers, but it's a more a tactical problem that must be managed according to the suggestions that Giovanna provided. If I have to move to the first part of the question, so regarding me, well, you made some categories, so you created some categories. I have to be honest, I never follow according to a category. So I don't like to follow a user that is always, publishing links or always showing technical posts or always showing one thing. I mean, I follow users only because I like to read or I like to interact with them in their variability. A user that is always is just let's say a republisher, for example. There are users who have this attitude to republish content. They are totally useless for me. In general, I always say this because if I read, there are some contents, it's easy. If you have enough connections, after a while, you start seeing the same posts sometimes republish it 10 times, 15 times, 20 times. It's totally useless. So my goal is to follow people whose content is interesting for me. And I don't make any distinction. Sometimes a meme can be interesting because I want to smile, or the meme is more expressive than a long post. Of course, I don't follow people who are. This is a personal question, okay? I'm answering as myself. I don't follow people who are too much mainstream because I like to be a little bit on the border. I mean, I don't like to be too much mainstream, but in general, this is something for me. I don't want to steal time, but to answer your the last part of your question, it's very important for followers to avoid becoming toxic. So it's very important. Giovanna can explain, because if I become like obsessive with my content, I can lose followers. Or if my content becomes too much detached from my potential audience is naturally driven to leave me. So it's an automatic way to behave. I mean, if you see this guy is just publishing every time the same thing, I don't like this thing, stop. After a while, I unfollow, because I don't want to fill my timeline with things that I don't like. So this is a way of managing strategically your connections. But for me, it's something that is based on not categories, but purely content. Thank you.
What exactly do you mean by same thing? Do you mean the same kind of thing, or what exactly do you mean by that?
Same thing means in this case, I'm not referring to same thing. I'm referring. There are some times when, for example,
genre? Same genre is a better way to put it.
Excuse me.
I'm saying the same genre of the posts. Posts are related to some certain topic.
No. Yeah, okay, I understood your question. Not necessarily. I mean, if the post is related to a topic and is authentic, is original, it's fine. Unfortunately, in the reality, what happens is that there is a news, for example, published by XYZ or a certain source, let's say, just to name one, I don't know, the MIT. And so everybody is just reposting it. Reposting without adding any content. So just reposting it. This is useless. I mean, in terms of information.
Yeah, got it. You mean just it is important to have your own voice, have your own input to the idea. Adding your own input to the idea is beneficial, is appreciable.
This is the only way to be yourself. When you say, I mean, if you do something that other people can do exactly in the same way, you're not adding any value.
Absolutely.
Ghaith?
Yes, I'm here. I think the next question is coming to Giovanna from Amit Rajit. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Giovanna.
Hi.
Great to be here. So I have just one very small question. Once the COVID situation settles down, maybe in 6 months, 1 year time, sometime definitely, will the focus on social media still be the same or will kind of diminish? Because now, everyone, we are inside our houses, so social media is the only way to connect. But once this is over, hopefully, very soon, so will the same kind of intensity will be there, or how it will be?
Thank you so much for your question. Very interesting question. Yeah, it's like habits. So some articles, some people said that after 21 days, if you do the same things, you get a habit. So with social media, it's like the same. We are now more on social media. We are investing more time. And the best part of social media nowadays is that with all the, because of all of the things that we have mentioned before, the content of social media now is better. We don't need just to go to social media to know more about a product. Now we have not only entertainment, we have information, we have trainings online, and we have spaces where to share with other people. For example, I can say, I live my virtual life in India. And because all the courses, all the things happens in India. So now I get used to be in contact with people around the world, and I don't want to lose this contact with these people. So in social media is the same. We now have different content. We have content that add value to our life, and all the professionals that work on social media, they have realized that it's important to continue with this strategy because they have engaged more effectively with their audience. So this is going to continue, and I think it's going to be better in the future. Maybe we are not will be in the same quantity of hours online, but we are going to be more than before online. So according with some statistics that I've seen on the internet, that now unfortunately I don't remember the source. Maybe if we get in touch, I can give you this information. Is that this behavior is going to continue. That we are going to be on the artificial society because we like this life, because we can get in contact with more people, we can learn from more cultures, we can share different things that we weren't able to do it before. So it's going to continue in that way. That's why I was telling you about the social media version before COVID, and now we have another version, and this version is going to improve. It's not going to be the same. And I think our life is not going to be the same after the COVID. We need to find a way of make this experience something positive in our lives.
Thanks, Giovanna.
Next question from Aluk. Aluk, please ask your question.
Yeah, hi. So my question is basically to all of the three main hosts today, but and it is like as we were discussing before a few minutes that the part of the social media, as we all have time right now and we all are at home. So what do you feel like is the social media and its advancements is a good thing or it's becoming an obsession to the people?
Who wants to answer?
Okay.
Giovanna.
I go with this one. Okay, it's true. It's true that, for example, we can get addicted to social media now. No, and I have to be honest. I get addicted to LinkedIn. So I have to, no, I had to do some changes in my life in the last 2 months, because I was too present in social media, because as I told you, my life is just virtual nowadays, as all of us. But I've gotten a very nice family, a data family inside the community of LinkedIn. So I feel so well there that I spent a lot of time there. But it's not, okay, it's the wrong, I used the wrong word. It's not spent. I invest a lot of time in LinkedIn, because I'm finding new content. I'm learning from different people, contributors and best players in data science. And then I get information that I don't get easily on Google. And there are people who offer office hours, some people who offer mentoring, and these things are opportunity that you can get when you are present on social media. But it's important to have a limit, because you cannot continue growing if you are all the time just looking your post and see what people is saying about one post. So you need to like manage your time. And that is important when I said, for example, that the audience maybe is not all during all the day on the social media, and they are the specific hours that you can find these people, these contributors. So now what I'm doing is trying to have time to invest in social media in the moments that I know that these contributors are online, and they are like posting some new content. So it's important to be aware of, we can use too much time that we can invest on learning other things.
Okay, I think there is no more questions. There's some other questions, but it's in the same family. I got a question right now from Rajan. Rajan, please ask your question. Hello. Okay, I will ask that question. Social medias are great. Give to meet and okay, two questions at the same time. Okay, Ava, please ask your question.
Thank you. So Giuseppe, I think you've been marketing during COVID, and I'm very curious to know whether you've changed in terms of the marketing measures that you look for during COVID compared to pre-COVID. So I'm very curious about that. If you could elaborate, please.
Well, yes, for sure. COVID created a very rapid change that initially was considered like a very short one. So the reaction was not immediate, but after a while it became a new normality. You know that normality from a statistical viewpoint is something that can drift from one point to another. And the reality nowadays is that many activities that were carried out, for example, with the direct interaction, I just come to visit you, are extremely difficult. Not necessarily impossible, but very difficult. So this created, for sure, a change in the way we have to face every kind of promotional activity. Because if any promotional activity drives to something that is impossible, or any promotional activity is based on an interaction which is impossible, or for example is very difficult, limited, we need to find alternative channels. These alternative channels should have the same effectiveness and should have the same should give the same possibilities to the users to interact with us. So what happened is converting many channels that were, we know, for example, what happened with platforms like Zoom or other social platforms to, for example, converting meetings into virtual meetings, but giving everybody the possibility to interact. So the goal in this case is to understand the needs of the user that is using a platform in general. When I say platform, I mean a channel. The channel can be just also the interaction with a person. So if the need is a specific one, this new condition forced us, not without any chance to avoid it, forced us to change the strategy. So in order to remain in the market, it was necessary to change completely. And the change for the most important, in the most important situations was driven by the specific way the users wanted to interact and finding the most suitable alternative. What Giovanna said is also true. Nowadays, there is a huge increase in the interaction with social channels. This huge increase can be natural, let's say organic, or can be forced. We have to make this distinction because the forced increase can disappear or can be something very weak. But many companies decided to invest in an organic growth of their social interaction through this media. So to transform a part of their old style, let's say old-fashioned marketing into the new one, considering that even if hopefully as soon as possible this pandemic will reach an end, the future can continue also in the direction of more virtuality, so more virtual channels. This is something that guarantees a more resilience in the marketing campaigns, even in I don't like to say this, but in case of other potential pandemic situations.
Okay, a question from Roxana. Please, Roxana, ask your question.
Hello, Giuseppe. I was wondering about provision models and for the year 2021, because we don't know what's going to happen in that year. I don't know if what's the right way of thinking about provision for 2021 in in any sector.
Okay. Well, this is an open topic. I mean, it's very difficult to say which model is most reliable when we talk about something that changes over time. We need to consider two things. One are the factors that have a sort of established status. So in this case, for sure, there are strong methods nowadays available to predict what is going to happen. Always not in the very long term, but in the medium term. But we need to consider that, for example, before COVID, and when I say before, I mean when COVID was only in China, the first days, the first month, almost no one in the world was thinking about what happened after. So we were completely detached from this possible scenario. And this is exactly what happens also when we look at, for example, when we look at stock markets. So sometimes there are events which are so random that make any prediction strategy almost impossible. So we have to include a certain randomic behavior. But in terms of methods, well, in the short term, there are enough machine learning or statistical methods which are reliable. Almost any in particular methods like the latest deep learning research on recurrent neural networks are based on understanding long and short-term relations and include them into the prediction. And these methods are probably the most reliable in a medium term, short medium term. If you want to predict a very long term, well, you have to take into account that there are factors that you have to include in some way, or if you don't have no idea, you cannot. And so you are always lacking this information. So in that case, the prediction is more, let's say, magic than real prediction. It's almost impossible to make an actual prediction. You can guess different scenarios. One thing that is helpful, but I don't want to take too much time, is the possibility to simulate different possibilities now, different scenarios. So we can, starting from a model, forcing the model to go in different directions. And we can see what can happen. And then we can evaluate with different probabilities and reweight the possibilities. And we can, in this case, understand immediately which scenarios need to be addressed with specific measures. And if you are a very, I don't know, in this case, this is, for example, for nations, for governments, you can decide to create particularly contingency plans for this worst case scenarios. And this is done, for example, for COVID, now we are talking about COVID, is done for understanding the need of emergency care, so intensive care. So nowadays we know that we have a limited number of beds, and we have to understand which threshold we need to consider as critical, because after that threshold, we know that even if we still have possibility, it's not easy to manage the possibility, because there can be a so rapid change that we have no time. So these scenarios where we understand different possible directions is very helpful, because in these situations there is no second option. I mean, if we fail, the failure is often fatal. So there's no way to solve the problem. In other cases, these different scenarios can help us in defining a sort of decision based on different probabilities, but of course we go increasing the likelihood of our decision. So we make the decision that maximize the likelihood of a positive outcome. Sorry for I was short, but it's a very long discussion.
Okay, thank you, Giuseppe.
Thank you.
Do you have anything to add, Giuseppe and Giovanna, at the end of this session?
Please, Giovanna, go on.
Okay, I think it has been very interesting combine the artificial intelligence with social media, because they are one thing. And I would like to mention that it's important to spotlight that it's important to be authentic, because this is the base of every marketing strategy. If you force people to do something, maybe at the beginning, people is going to do something because they believe in you. But if they realize that you are manipulating them to do something, they are not going to trust you. So, and it's very difficult to have again, to make people to trust you again. So, and this is the same in the real world, with people, with the people that we have around us. So another important thing is be real when you transmit a message, because something that is happening is that you deliver a message and then some person comes to you thinking that you are in that way. And when they knock to your door, you just open the door and you say, well, who are you? No, I don't know anything about you. No, but you tell us about this. Okay, you can do two things. You can just close the door on the face of this person saying, I don't care, because I was delivering this message because it was a strategy. Or you can take advantage of this opportunity to know more your audience. So, and this happened not because you are a different person. This happens because your strategy is not based on the values of the company, because this is another important thing. So every area of the company needs to understand that the main and the most important person is the customer, is the audience. And we need to provide them what they need from us, because we are trying to make them to trust us. So if they contact me, or if they contact Giuseppe, or if they contact Ghaith, they need to find the same attitude. They need to find the same values. They need to find the same message, the same tone of voice that is called in social media. So if I am communicating with a company, I expect to have the same answer on the same kind of tone of voice of all the people who work there. Even if it is not like that, people is going to say, okay, it seems like I am talking with another company, because I was talking with Giovanna, and Giovanna told me in that way, and okay, I talked with Giuseppe, Giuseppe told me in another way, and Ghaith in another way. So I am in different companies, talking with different companies. So what is happening here? So I think this is the message. We need to understand that we are part of a team, we are part of a company, and we have to deliver the same message in the same tone of voice.
Giuseppe.
Well, I don't want to add anything. I mean, already Giovanna said the majority of important things. I'm very happy that this event took place. For sure, social media is becoming more and more important. This is something that we cannot simply try to forget. Before there was a question regarding the obsession of social media. Indeed, there is a psychological disorder related to social media now. There are people who are obsessive, really obsessive with social media. They cannot even stop. Sometimes I think even myself, and probably every of us, is becoming. The reality is that social media are becoming an extension, a cognitive extension of our life. This is not something fancy. It's just a way we interact with people, we collect information, and we send messages. So it's something that is happening, and we have to manage these tools in the best ways to obtain the maximum amount of value from them. Clearly, there are. I was reading some questions, a lot of problems related to privacy, to freedom, to whatever. I mean, there are many things which cannot be discussed, unfortunately, in this session. Social media are a way to become public. Remember that whenever you want to be private, so you close your door, you shut your computer off, and you have a meeting with your loved ones, that is something private. In social media, it's completely different. In general, everything is public. This public is a natural exposure to all possible people who want to spy in some way or can look at your life. So it's natural that it's necessary to have regulations and to manage the way we interact also with social media. This is an interesting topic, very long, so I don't want to discuss about this absolutely, but it's a very interesting topic. In particular nowadays, we know that social media have a lot of power because they have a lot of information about us, because we are transferring a part of our life into social medias. I know that this is strange, but this is the reality. We are doing this. We are transferring what in the past, for example, and this is the last thing, I promise. Imagine the photo albums, photo collections. You went on, on a trip. You returned. You met your friends or your family, and you said, "Do you want to see my photos?" I show you the photos, and you showed a lot of photos, printed photos. Nowadays, this is something absolutely ridiculous. Everybody knows everything in the same exact moment you are doing it, because while you are for example, behind you there is the Taj Mahal. Thanks. I want to thank you all the Indian followers. In that exact moment, you are not looking at the Taj Mahal behind you, but you are thinking to write something on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. So everybody knows that you are there. This changed completely the way we interact and the way we manage our lives. So of course it's necessary to rethink something that was established in a long period, and now reshape this with the new concept of social media. So absolutely, I'm very happy. And in particular, I'm absolutely glad that Giovanna joined. She is the real the starring character of this podcast, this event. Her suggestions are very interesting and very important for us. So I invite everybody to follow her on LinkedIn in particular, all the channels that she has, because she can give you a lot of suggestions about how to improve your experience on social media. And she also speaks a perfect Italian, so I'm very happy about this. So thank you very much, Ghaith, and thank you very much, Giovanna, for this event.
Thank you, Giovanna. Thank you, Giuseppe. In fact, what you see here each time when Giovanna tried to mention something related to the YouTube channel of Giuseppe, and then this is what happened when we were planning for this event. In fact, a lot of fun and a lot of reflection and a lot of conflict, it was happening. So you can imagine, and these people, they are very friendly. I'm really thank you for being here. And thank you for the audience. Thanks for Tom, for all the audience, all who ask questions. See you next month. Thank you.